Right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shalabh. I'm a go-to-market manager with the security division at Microsoft. And I'll be running you through with a small presentation on our compliance portfolio, what we have to offer, and specifically how we are helping customers in the journey with different type of regulations which are coming in the Indian regulatory world, ranging from RBI and probably the latest release, the DPDP Act. Now, before actually I dive into the act, can I just have a little show of hands? Have you heard about the DPDP Act until now? All right. And how many of you have heard about the GDPR Act, which is there in Europe? Practically everyone, right? So, to give you some background, right, the DPDP Act has been under discussion by Government of India for a while. It was first sort of passed in the year 2017, but it was practically passed by both houses of the parliament last year in August. It's an enacted law, and any data which is concocted digitally in India, or data which has been created offline, but there's a digital footprint to it, will be part of this act. Now, I'll be telling you how is Microsoft helping in the compliance journey, but I mean, before I even start that, right? So some of the key things that are there in the act, and I'll also tell you probably one big difference as it exists with GDPR, right? But some of the key requirements range from consent management, which is probably like around 30 or 40% of the act, and to manage to manage consent for the individual. You will have a consent management office. So the way the act is structured is that there is a data principal, which is the individual whose data is required to be protected. So government has given the right of the data to the individual, and these rights include right to forget, or basically right to erase data when the individual does not want the particular entity to hold the data, right to modify the request. And the organizations which are collecting this data are essentially called as data fiduciaries, right? It can be a bank if you are dealing with your customers. It can be a hospital or anybody in the medical sector. It can be even a company which is interviewing candidates and then collecting information. It can be anything, right? So that will be called as a data fiduciary, and then obviously there can be a data processor which can process the data on behalf of the fiduciary. There are a lot of sections in the act which tell about the rights of the data principal and also the responsibility of the data fiduciary. Now, what are the primary things, right? So consent management, explicit consent management in most cases is definitely a right. And then, like I said, there should be a right to access your data, erase the data when it is needed. A lot of times, I mean, have you noticed, right? Like when there are certain websites, when you open them from India, they will practically ask you to put in your mobile number at the first spot. Have you seen that? Like even when I am accessing a website, let's say to order food or to get any of the other services, they would want to take my phone number, and then I'll probably get an OTP and the process will move forward. But if you carefully notice, such a practice is not very common, or rather not seen in most of the cases in Europe, because collecting personal information comes with a lot of requirements, and companies do not tend to do that sort of stuff unless it's absolutely necessary, right? So a lot of times when you visit these websites which are hosted in Europe, they will have multiple sessions for cookies as well. So cookie management is also a very important part of it. And then obviously in case, for protecting all these data, there has to be data protection measures. Again, this is also part of the act. And in case a breach happens, so government has to still form like a data protection board, but they'll have to be breach reporting, right? So if some of you work in the security space, today if a security incident happens, there is a mandatory requirement that you have to report the breach to the Government of India. There's practically a vertical called as CERT, Computer Emergency Response Team, is based out of Delhi. Similarly, there'll be a breach reporting, that will be built into the data protection office. Now, government has not formulated the rules for it, so government is a little slow on this. Probably after elections, it may happen. That's what the rumor is. So these are primarily the rights, right? So that being said, right, how can Microsoft help the customers in their journey? If you have not heard about customers asking about DPDP yet in the SMB space, I'm telling you this is only a matter of certain months. I was in, we held a DPDP-based enterprise session probably last week in our office in Gurgaon. And I had the privilege of speaking with a lot of data protection officers, legal officers, CLOs, around 50, 60, out of Nifty 200 companies. And this is a big concern for most of them, right? And to think about it, a lot of these folks are not really on the top of their technical stack. Their know-how is not really there. The legal processes are not completely in line with the technology. And they obviously need help and guidance on how they can achieve this. And that's where the partner ecosystem comes in, because you will be advising them in various capacities as government becomes stricter on this, which should ideally happen at any point of time. In fact, just before coming in here, I came across a news article from day before yesterday. I think that's most likely going to happen after the elections. But that being said, right, what does Microsoft's approach looks like to you? So data protection or governance primarily revolve around 4 parts that you can see on the screen. Knowing your data, protecting your data, and governing your data. Probably the most important aspect about all this is knowing the data in the first place, right? Think about it. We all have mobile phones. We all have laptops. If you're using a laptop for, let's say, more than 3 months or 6 months, how many of you know, or at least I can tell you from my case, right? I do not know what data exists in my laptop. In each and every folder, there are like files that I have created probably 6 months back, a year back. Maybe there is a file from for a certain project that is no longer needed. That is a big challenge, right? And therefore, knowing that data, classifying it, encrypting it is a very important part. Most of the data that exists in corporate organizations is dark data, right? So there is a study, and I will obviously be sharing the links. 70 to 80% of all data is dark data. People or organizations do not know about it, right? And obviously, if you do not know about something, then protecting it, preventing breach or giving the right to the data principles becomes all the more difficult, right? Now, this is in a typical organization. Again, this is not necessarily that all the roles will exist within an organization, but this is what a typically, a scenario looks like from a security officer or a compliance officer, and ultimately rolling up to CISO. They are responsible for different things related to the data, right? So somebody is responsible for making sure that all the policies which are coming through, the organization is compliant with it. So let's say if you work in the finance industry, probably your customers have to be, completely in line with the RBI regulations or the SEBI circular, or maybe PCI DSS for the credit cards. If you work in the healthcare industry, maybe they need to be, completely in line with the HIPAA regulations which have come through, so on and so forth, right? There are different regulations. There's the Indian IT Act, there's the DPDP Act. So there's somebody is responsible for making sure that all the regulations are in place with, the companies in line with all of them. Then obviously for a certain, security assurance officer, that can be the thing. But for data protection manager, it can be that there's no breach happening, or if it happens, that is notified in time. Then there can be a privacy officer, which will be responsible for, notifying individuals of their rights and making sure there's no overprivilege of data happening. Nobody is accessing the data when they don't need to. Now, all of them have their own requirements, and there is no single stack available to manage all this, right? There are point solutions which are available. And at least in terms of Microsoft security solutions that are present in the market, I can tell you the biggest USP that we offer is that we offer you everything under a single platform. It's the classic story between best of breed and best of suit, right? So we offer you a unified solution, and that is where you can help your customers. So the 2 solutions that we offer are Microsoft Purview and Microsoft Priva Privacy Management, right? Now, there are obviously a number of things associated with it. I'll also show you a recorded demo, and specifically tailor-made for Indian conditions. I'll tell you what kind of things can go wrong and how are Microsoft, helping with it. But before I get to that, right, so what does Purview, Microsoft Purview initially, before the nomenclature came in, we had different things, like we had a compliance manager, we had information protection and governance, we had data loss prevention. But today, Microsoft Purview essentially can give you out of the box. We have something called as sensitivity labeling. So you can auto-discover automatically all the data that exists and classify them using some trainable classifiers. So let's say you have documents which contains Aadhaar card numbers or credit card information, or let's say they contain PAN card information, right? And you want to make sure that all such documents are automatically discovered, and then they are assigned a sensitivity label of confidential, right? Can you do it without spending hours, a lot of human hours, and maybe even not, then you're not able to do it successfully. So Purview can help you with that. And not only can you apply a sensitivity label, you can also put up a legal hold. So let's say you want to retain the data for X amount of time, you can achieve that as well. Similarly, we can do it for both structured and unstructured data, right? So unstructured will obviously be like you create data on SharePoint, Teams, Outlook, all over the place, right? But also for structured data, right? So I saw a lot of you are talking about ISV solutions. You're running databases, running MongoDB or SQL DB. You're running something in AWS. Can that structured data also be classified and retained accordingly? So we do that as well as part of our Azure Purview solution. And then obviously you need to have data loss prevention in place. So DLP, I'm sure like most of you might have heard about it, that deals with accidental leakage of data, and also sometimes it can happen voluntarily as well, right? So let's say somebody leaks or sends out that email which is confidential in nature but should not have been sent out of the organization. Can you stop that, right? Or if there is a file and somebody is just copies it onto the USB or sends it over Team, can you stop that? And I'll show you that use cases as part of the demo. And it's a recorded demo, so I'll keep it crisp and short. Similarly, right, what can you do in terms of controlling your shadow IT and privacy? So we have Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, which gives you the ability to prevent shadow IT and session management. So let's say you're running a lot of SaaS applications. So somebody's running box.com, or Dropbox to store files, maybe an online CRM application, and your customers wish, they want to know how compliant are these applications with the industry regulations. Can they see it in a single dashboard and monitor it as things happen? Can they also make sure what type of information is being passed, right? And what type of controls you have over the information. So it's basically a cloud access security broker solution. And then ultimately, we also give you the opportunity to do insider risk management. And it's a very powerful tool. In fact, we just concluded one of the biggest deals. I can't name the company, but it's a Nifty 50 company. And essentially what it allows you to do, let's say your customer is running an organization and the employee is going to leave the organization in the next 10 days. And they start sending out data, maybe through an email, maybe uploading it, putting it on Pastebin, they are putting up code on the Pastebin, or they're sending out files over any file sharing network. Can the AI and ML models come in, analyze the pattern of this particular user and compare it with whatever has been the pattern before or whatever has been the pattern with its teammates? So let's say somebody is downloading a lot of files, sharing it, and they have not been doing it before, or none of their other teammates do. Or let's say there's an HR person and they are increasingly trying to access files of developers or finance, right? And maybe the permissions are not in place. Can the AI detect it, take screenshots, and prevent such a thing from happening? So that's where insider risk management comes in. And then obviously we have data lifecycle and records management, which again will also be very important for people who want to be on the journey with DPDP, because one of the things that DPDP requires you to have is that you should only retain the data only for as long as you need it, right? So when I was coming to the airport, they wanted to see my Aadhaar card, and it was only a point in time thing, right? So they saw the Aadhaar card, they were sure that I'm who I'm claiming to be, and they allowed me inside, which is great because I didn't give them a physical copy. But in a lot of other places, they will practically keep my Aadhaar card where the authorization is only a point-in-time activity and is not needed any longer, right? So in such a situation, you are legally supposed to destroy those records. So, data lifecycle and record management can help you in those things. You can, for data, once the lifecycle is done, you can have proper expiry procedures in place. And then finally, right, we also give you the opportunity to have e-discovery, which can come in very handy in legal cases. I'll actually show you a screenshot to explain this more. And we can also give you the ability to have information barriers. So certain regulated industries, finance being one of them, and certain hospitality sectors being the other ones, there is a requirement that you need to protect data flowing in a two-way direction, right? So let's say people should be able to send a file over Teams from A to B, but the reciprocal should not be present, right? Or maybe a communication should not be happening in the other way around. So information barriers can come into picture. Now I'm just giving you a very high level overview about what Purview and Priva can offer. These are just two broad products, and these are just like the feature sets that they have. Now that being said, right, what would a journey look like? So this is the compliance manager dashboard. So just like if any of you have seen our security portfolio, we give you a secure score as you move along in your journey. We give you a compliance dashboard, we give you a percentage which will tell you how compliant you are with certain regulation. Again, we are not an auditing firm, we are only helping you in the compliance journey based upon the data which is exposed to us. But once that is done, right, you will also have remediation action on what you can do to improve that score. And currently we have a whole assessment template built out for DPDP, right? We are one of the first people to have created this in the industry. And I mean, if you're running an E5 license, we give you 3 templates for free. So you can deploy it, you can attach the M365 service to it, and you can practically know what is the score, what all are the things that you need to take, and take corrective measures. So a DPDP specific assessment template is available as well. The one thing that I want to tell before I actually show you the demo is around structured data. So like I said, unstructured data, M365 data, SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive is okay. But even outside of it, right, if you can see, right, so Azure Synapse, SQL, cross cloud activities such as S3 bucket, we can tap into all of those using our Purview solution. And even with structured data, you can have same level of visibility. So, right, currently these are 2 different portals. I'll be very honest, it is Azure portal and M365 portal, but we are working very hard to integrate them all together. But even today, at least in 2 portals, you have all the things visible, right? So any point of time, if somebody wants to know what is my data journey from a single pane of glass, it is available with us. Now, that being said, right, let me show you some demos that we recorded. And I hope they work fine. So this is basically the privacy manager dashboard. So as you can see, this is basically the alerts page or the landing page once you come into Priva. So you can see how many subject rights requests came, you can see how many personal data types were there and how they have been changing over let's say the last 30 days and how much personal data is exposed. Not only can you see that, you can also see it which service is linked with a particular data set, right? So that you can go and work on that service to deal with the rights requests. Similarly, and I hope this plays. Yeah, in this particular thing, you can see that there's a PAN card, and again, this has been classified as a using the trainable classifiers as an important data, and somebody's trying to send it over Teams. And if you can see, I hope you can read it, that this was automatically flagged. This is sensitive data that you are trying to send across the organization, or maybe somebody it is not intended to, and it is stopped altogether. So data leakage or data loss prevention can also happen in again using even images. So we have OCR integrated with it in order to achieve this. Similarly, this is again an example of an email. So let's go through this. So I'm just adding a particular subject which is saying that this is a PII information, and then what we'll do is we will play again. Yeah, so as you can see, right, in this particular document, there's an Aadhaar card number already given, and we are able to automatically classify it. I think the other demo just got passed, but what we were showing in that case is that we are trying to attach a document which is based upon a trainable classifier. It had credit card information. And because it had credit card information and we were trying to send it to a recipient it was not supposed to be sent, the email will be automatically blocked and not sent outside. Similarly, this is a document which has an Aadhaar card number. We are able to automatically detect it and give. Yeah. So this is obviously a document and this has a Aadhaar card number in it, and we will be able to give a tooltip, tell you that this is a private document. Again, this is not simply a regular expression matching. I mean, this is what is happening in this case, but we look at a lot of other things. So let's say what is the other text which is being mentioned in this document. It can be obviously a 16 characters without it being a credit card or an Aadhaar card. So we look at a lot of other things when giving a rating and telling if this is a a legitimate document or not. And these can be fine-tuned as well. We give you a lot of classifiers which are automatically trained, credit card numbers, social security numbers, etc. But you can manage them on your own as well. Now, again, this works with Teams as well. So I hope you can read this, but again, I'm trying to send some sensitive information over Teams, and automatically there's a block which comes due to the policies which are enforced by the organization. And obviously you can choose to override it or report it depending upon what is given as per your policy. Now in this, this is more from a user experience standpoint, but once that happens, right, what can you do from a coaching purpose, or what do you need to do if there is overexposure of data? So even from that purpose, right, so what you are saying that there are privacy issues which are reported to a user, and those are coming over an email to a particular user. They can review it, they can provide feedback that probably this is a legitimate use case, or work upon it. And this can also be used for training purposes, the type of data that they need to interact with. Similarly, if there is data that needs to be retained, you can again send it back to the admin. They'll be able to look at it and give you rights to it as needed. So that's it. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to take. Okay, tell me this, like, has any of you till now had a conversation or an inquiry from one of your customers around compliance? Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so this was for a pharmaceutical company where they have multiple requirements related to data protection.
Okay.
And those requirements are very, very specific in terms of, because, the major challenge with Microsoft is that all the compliance works very well with Word, Excel, PowerPoint. But the challenge that I am facing right now is other than Microsoft files, especially .cdr file, Corel, Photoshop, Illustrator, those files. So this was a very unique case where they were looking for specific data security solution which are related to graphic files.
Okay, so graphic files I'll need to check, but normally what happens in Purview is that you can add, so one is obviously a default connector for M365, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, those type of files. And for a lot of the data protection law, so for instance, California law, there's one of them, I know that for a fact, that has a lot of other data connectors available with it. So it has a SailPoint data connector, it has a data connector for AWS. So different ISVs also can build data connectors which will allow us to integrate those barriers with it. Now there are two aspects in it. One is the specific compliance regulation that we are looking for, if that has this data connector built in, and obviously the file type that we are looking at. But at least the popular ones that I have seen, they have multiple data connectors in place. We can definitely check with the Corel Draw, whatever file that is, what is the requirement with it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.